In 1688, in Basel, a medical student sat down to describe a disease that no one had named yet. He was 19, and he believed he had found something that was killing people. He was not imagining it, he had watched it. Young men, thinning, greying, refusing food, and dying. Far from anything that had ever hurt them. They were Swiss. Mercenaries mostly, poor boys, sold into other countries' wars, standing in flat foreign country, under a sky with no mountains in it. No appetite, pale, sleepless, hearts running fast for no reason, fever, and a strange symptom the doctors kept writing down, a tendency to confuse the past with the present. He needed a name for it, so he reached for Greek. Nostos, the word Homer uses for a homecoming, the word for what Odysseus spends 10 years trying to do, and algos, pain, nostalgia, which does not mean the sweetness of remembering, it means the pain of the return, or more exactly, the pain of not being able to make it. He thought he knew the cause, a disease of the brain, something he described as a continuous vibration of the animal spirits, an imagination fixed so hard on one place that it crowded everything else out and then began to take the body with it. It sounds absurd now, but hold the shape of it. He was saying that a feeling could get loud enough to kill you. And for the next 200 years, Europe agreed with him. Doctors studied it, argued about the cure, wrote papers on who was most at risk, and they wrote it on death certificates. So sit with that for a second. A feeling you have had, probably this week, over a song or a smell or somebody's kitchen was once a fatal diagnosis. And the doctors who made it had one thing precisely backwards. For a while it was thought to be a national illness, mal du Suisse, the Swiss disease, as though the Alps had got inside people and separation from them was medically dangerous. And there was said to be a trigger, not a wound, not a bad winter, a melody, the Kurion, the herdsmen's songs, the ones sung driving cattle up to summer pasture. Ordinary music, the kind of thing you would not notice if you had never left. Rousseau wrote about it in his Dictionary of Music. Men who heard that tune, he says, dissolved in tears, deserted, or were simply left broken by it. And so the story goes that the song was forbidden, that singing it near Swiss troops carried a penalty. Some accounts say death. Historians argue about whether that punishment was ever real, but notice what is not in dispute. An army was frightened of a tune, frightened enough to treat a piece of music as a weapon aimed at its own soldiers. And what was the cure? There were purges, there were threats, there was shame, which is what every era reaches for when it does not understand a suffering. But one treatment worked reliably. Send them home. That was it. Not a drug, not a surgery, a journey in the right direction. And it did not stay in Switzerland. Armies elsewhere kept recording it through the 19th century, including in the American Civil War. Cases logged, deaths attributed, a feeling with a body count. And let us be careful here, because those men really were dying, of hunger, of infection, of exhaustion, of a despair that no one was treating. But the diagnosis pointed at the longing and called that the killer, which is the mistake. And it lasted 300 years. Because eventually psychologists went back to it, and they asked a question that nobody in 3 centuries had bothered to ask properly. Not what does nostalgia do to people, but something simpler. When does it turn up? What is happening to a person in the moments just before they start to remember? The answers are consistent. loneliness, low mood, feeling excluded or unmoored, a sense that life has stopped meaning much, uncertainty about who you are now, and, remarkably, being physically cold. Put people in a chilly room and they nostalgize more. Make them nostalgize and they report feeling warmer. The body is in this, literally. Now look again at where Hofer found his disease. Young men, lonely, frightened, cold, far from everyone who knew them, miserable, and also constantly remembering home. He saw those two things together, and he did what people do. He decided which one was causing the other. So the modern experiments do something Hofer could not. They produce nostalgia on purpose. Ask one group to bring a nostalgic memory to mind, and another to recall an ordinary event. Then measure both. Not opinions about the past, measures of how a person is doing right now, afterwards. And the results run the other way from everything Hofer believed. More meaning in life, more sense of connection to other people, higher self-esteem, more optimism about what is ahead. And one more, the strangest and the most important, a stronger sense that the person you were and the person sitting here now are the same person. Which turns out to be the whole point. Because that phrase, self-continuity, sounds like jargon. It is not. It is the quiet sense that the child in that photograph and the person holding it are one continuous thing. That your life is a story and not a series of strangers wearing your name. And that sense is not automatic. It can thin out, move country, change work, lose the people who knew the earlier versions of you, and it starts to fray. Which is exactly when nostalgia shows up, uninvited, insistent, dragging up a kitchen, a road, a person's laugh. It is not asking you to move back. It is retying the thread. It is the mind saying, you are still the same one. Here is the evidence. Now the second surprise. Because nostalgia is not spread evenly across a life, it is not a thin light falling on all your years equally. It clusters. Hard. Ask people, at any age, to bring up their most vivid memories. And the same stretch of years keeps lighting up, roughly 10 to 30. Researchers call it the reminiscence bump. A person of 70, with 50 more years of material to choose from, will still return, again and again, to that narrow band. And here is what makes it interesting. Those are very often not the happiest years. They are frequently the most humiliating, the poorest, the most frightened. So why those? Because that is where the first times live. The first love, the first leaving, the first song that felt like it had been written about you, the first choice that was actually yours. Everything in that stretch is a landmark, because everything is new and nothing yet is decided. Those are the years the self is still being assembled, when you are still working out what you like, who you are willing to be, which of the available lives you are going to try to have. And the mind seems to know it. It files that whole period differently, not as things that happen to you, but as the material you are made of, which is why the music from those years never loses its voltage. You can hear a song you have not thought about in 20 years and be flattened by it in 4 seconds. Not because it was good music, some of it was terrible, but because your brain did not file it under entertainment. It filed it under identity. So when nostalgia comes for you, it is not sampling your life at random. It is going back to the construction site. So now we can say what Hofer actually got wrong. It was not the observation. He saw exactly what was there, suffering and longing, in the same men at the same time. His error was the arrow. He assumed the longing produced the suffering. 3 centuries of evidence say it runs the other way. The distress comes first, and the remembering arrives afterwards. Sent for. Nostalgia was never the illness, it is what the mind sends to treat it. But if it is a treatment, treatment for what exactly? And here most people answer wrongly. They think they miss a place, so they test it. They go back. And you can. The street is still there, the town, sometimes the actual house, with somebody else's curtains in your window. And it does not work. Everyone who has tried it knows this. You stand in the exact spot. The geography cooperates completely, and the feeling does not come, which tells you something precise. Whatever you were missing was never in that location, because what is missing is not a place, and it is not really a decade either. It is a person, and the person is you. A specific version of you, the one for whom the door was still open, for whom that friendship had not gone quiet, and that person was still alive, and that choice had not been made yet. So hear this as plainly as it can be said. You are not homesick for a time. You are homesick for a self, the one who did not know yet how it turned out. And that is why it aches, even when the memory is a happy one. That confuses people. They think, if the memory is good, the feeling should be good. But you are looking at something that is entirely yours and completely out of reach, both at once. There is no version of that that does not hurt a little. And it explains something else people find strange. 2 people can remember the same evening, and only one of them aches. Same room, same music, same year. Because the ache is not in the evening, it is in what that evening was load-bearing for. One of them was becoming someone in that room. The other was just having a nice time. Now the honest part. Because a feeling this powerful and this pleasant is one of the easiest things in a human being to take hold of and steer, and you should know how that is done. It starts with something the memory itself does, before anyone else gets involved. Memory does not store a decade. It stores a highlights reel, and it edits. The warmth stays, the boredom goes, the waiting goes, the fear goes. The summer you remember was 3 hot afternoons. There were 90 days in it. The rest, the flat, dull, anxious rest, did not make the cut. When that editing happens to your own life, it is mostly harmless. You are the only citizen of that country. Nobody gets hurt if your 19th summer is kinder in memory than it was in fact. The trouble starts when the editing is done collectively, when a whole society starts remembering a decade the way you remember a song. Because a golden age is the most persuasive product ever sold. And its great advantage, the thing that makes it almost unbeatable, is that it does not have to have existed. It only has to feel remembered. And a feeling of remembering, as we have just established, can be produced in a person by making them lonely enough and then offering them warmth. So when someone offers to take you back to how things were, to when things worked, it is worth being very awake, because they are offering a place, and the place is edited. It is the highlights reel of a country. And there is a question that cuts through it fast. Whose past was it? Because every golden age was somebody's ordinary decade and somebody else's worst one. The people for whom it was not golden are simply not on the reel. And there is a private danger too, smaller, quieter, and much more common. Nostalgia is built to be a visit. It is not built to be an address. Used as a visit, it does what we said. It warms you, it reconnects you, it sends you back into your life with a little more of yourself than you had before. But when the past stops being a place you go and becomes the only place you are fully alive, something else is happening. That is not nostalgia doing its job. That is grief or depression wearing its coat. The tell is simple. Nostalgia leaves you warmer and returns you to the day. The other thing takes the day away, a little more each time, and gives nothing back. And if that is where you are, that is worth saying out loud. To someone who knows you, or to someone trained for it. And notice, that is not a different instinct from the one we have been describing. Reaching backwards for warmth and reaching sideways for a person are the same reflex. One of them just answers. Try it on any golden age you have heard sold. Whoever is describing it was standing somewhere in it. And there was always another position in that same decade where the light did not reach. That is not a reason to sneer at people who miss it. Their warmth is real, and it is usually about their own young years, not about policy. But the real is still a real.
So what do you actually do with this?
And the whole answer is in one distinction. Use it as a compass, not as a residence. Because a compass is not telling you to go back, it is telling you where something is. So the next time it arrives, and it will, do not just sit in it. Ask it one question. What was present then that is not present now? And be exact. Not the decade, not the haircut, the actual missing ingredient. And the answer is almost never the era. It is people in a room with no reason to leave. It is being known without having to explain yourself. It is unhurried time. It is the feeling that things were still open. Look at that list. Every single thing on it exists in the present tense. All of it can be rebuilt. Not identically, not effortlessly, but rebuilt. And one thing on that list cannot be. The feeling that everything was still open, that you had not spent any of it yet. That is gone. It is the one honest loss inside all of this. But notice what replaced it. You know things now. You know which of those open doors you would never have wanted. And that is not nothing. Now the second use, and this one is stranger. Everything you will feel nostalgic about in 20 years is currently happening. It is not stored somewhere. It is around you, right now. And it will not be the big days. It never is. It will be a Tuesday, someone in your kitchen, a conversation you were only half paying attention to, which means you can do something slightly unnatural and enormously useful. You can look at an ordinary evening now the way you are going to look at it later. That is not sentimentality. It is arithmetic. And it is the closest thing to time travel that anybody gets. And there is a strange bonus in it. People who do this, who notice the ordinary thing while it is still ordinary, report the same evening twice. Once living it. Once, years later, when it comes back for them. The second one is quieter, but it is not smaller. Ask anyone who has been given back an afternoon they thought they had lost. And it brings us back to those boys in a foreign garrison, pale, sleepless, refusing food, with a doctor at the bedside writing down the wrong cause. They were not sick with longing. They were young, a long way from home, and being kept from the people and the country that had made them who they were. The longing was not the disease. It was the healthiest thing about them. So when it arrives in you, the song, the smell, the kitchen, the ache that comes with it, do not treat it as weakness. Something in you has noticed that a thing is missing, and it has gone and fetched the warmest thing it owns. See what people hide, even from themselves.